I think my dead boyfriend is trying to call me. My name is Laura and my boyfriend, Mark, died in a car crash last year. We had been together for 10 years when he died and were on the move to buy a house and build a family. On the day he died, I was looking at different houses we were thinking of buying. He was supposed to come too but had to cancel because he needed to finish something up at work. This wasn't unusual since we desperately needed every euro we could get to buy and furnish a house. So we both generally worked a lot. One of the houses had an open house viewing starting at 5. I liked the house the first time I saw it and Mark was happy to get any house as long I was happy. We had walked past this house a couple of times to get a better feel for the neighborhood and neighbors. I didn't know why but it instantly felt like home when I entered it. Not just homely but it felt like I had a connection with this house. It was a beautiful old villa, with renovated pipes and everything, and surprisingly enough it was only a little bit over our budget, but nothing we couldn't manage with a loan from the bank. I sent him a few pictures and videos of the house and told him how much I liked it from the inside. Not expecting him to answer right away, I put my phone into my bag and talked about the details of the house with the real estate agent that organized the open house viewing. Some time passed and I realized it was getting darker outside and I wanted to be home before Mark came home to cook him some dinner. When I was in the car, I looked at my phone for the first time in about 2 hours and I realized I had a missed call from Mark. I tried calling him back, but he didn't pick up. Thinking he was probably still at work, I didn't think much of it. So, I went home. It was probably 7:30 p.m. at this point. Cooked him some nice lasagna and waited. I must have fallen asleep at some point because I woke up. It was pitch black outside. My phone was ringing, and an unknown number called. This was very unusual. At this point it was probably 1 a.m. and usually no one would call me at this time of the night. But still, being half asleep, I quickly picked up. I answered my phone and all I could hear was some distant coughing and heavy breathing. I said hello a few times, before hanging up. I was pretty sure this was probably just some prank call from some kid that called some numbers randomly. When I realized Mark hadn't come home yet, I tried calling him. Yet again he didn't pick up. I was desperate and called his boss, who was almost always working through the night, and I was pretty sure he would be at the office with Mark. Mark's boss picked up. His voice sounded croaky but yet soft. I could tell I just woke him up. I quickly apologized and wanted to hang up, but he said, "Well, now that I am awake, what can I help you with?" I figured it was true and just said that I thought that Mark might be at the office with him. Mr. Kruger stopped for a second and said, "Sorry dear, Mark left the office at 4 p.m. He told me you wanted to look at houses together." I was confused, to say the least, but thanked him anyways and let him go back to sleep. I tried calling Mark until it was early enough to bother some of his friends. I was lying awake all night, and at some point, I was even convinced that he had an affair. Thinking back now, I am disappointed that I would have even thought about that for 1 second. But I guess sleep deprivation got the best of me. In the morning I still had heard nothing from Mark, and I started to really freak out. I called his best friends, his parents and his siblings, but no one knew where he was. I was so confused. Why did he tell me he couldn't make it, when he left the office early enough to join me? That didn't make sense at all. At this point I tried reporting him to the police as a missing person. But since we weren't married and he was a grown man, there was nothing we could do about it. I called some of my friends and they came over so that I wouldn't have to be alone. After a while, a friend found the courage to suggest to me that I could maybe try calling the hospital. My stomach turned at the thought of him being hurt. All this time went by and not once I thought he could be lying in hospital. But after my friend suggested that, it was all I could think about. So that's what I did. At first, I looked up hospitals near the house and tried my luck. And the last hospital on my list was the one. I described Mark to the secretary. She didn't say much but directed me to some chief doctor and suggested that I would come to the hospital directly. One of my girls drove me, All this time I had to think about the love of my life, being in hospital all alone, no one there to comfort him. No one there. We arrived at the hospital and at this point I could barely hold back my tears. We went up to the 4th floor, and from there on my memories kind of start to fade. I remember we talked to a doctor. She had blonde hair up in a very strict ponytail. She was somewhat intimidating but had warm brown eyes. I could tell she didn't catch much sleep either. Her office smelled of freshly made coffee and her under-eye bags were concerningly big. I can't remember much about the conversation we had. I was mesmerized by her calm voice that hugged me like a warm blanket on a cold and rainy day. All I can remember is that she told me Mark had an accident. While he was crossing the main road, a driver probably didn't see him and ran him over. They tried everything they could, but he died. I don't remember anything after that from that day. I don't know where I went, who I talked to. All I know is I woke up the next day hoping that this was one bad nightmare, that the love of my life, that the man I wanted to have children with and the man I wanted to spend the rest of my life with wasn't dead. But as soon as I opened my eyes, I knew that it wasn't just a dream. It was all real. My friends and family were all sitting around my bed. I was in my childhood room. Nothing really changed from when I had moved out 8 years prior. All the posters and pictures were still up on the wall and on the bedside table there was a picture of Mark. It was from our first holiday together. My mom put it there, to make us feel at home when we were visiting. He looked so happy. He was sitting on the beach, eating ice cream and had the biggest smile on his face. All the features looked so similar and yet so distant. The next few weeks were hard and waking up each day realizing he was dead made it as if I had to go through it over and over again. I slept a lot. In my dreams he was still with me. We were still messing around in our apartment, laughing about the silliest things and enjoying life. Every day when I woke up my heart broke all over again. Each day I had to realize that I was still alive, and he was gone, forever. It took me some time to go back to our apartment. A few weeks passed, but I had to eventually get back to life and figure out what to do next. My best friend dropped me off. She wanted to come inside but I insisted on being alone. Since Mark had passed, I was always surrounded by people. I know they meant well, but seeing them look at me with their sad eyes didn't really help. So, I went back, taking everything I got from the hospital and the police with me. It was a big white box and a little folder. Mark's possessions he had on him when he died and what they had found in his car, the official police report and the report of his death. I took this box everywhere, but never actually looked inside. It pained me too much, but it was all that was left of him. When I went back, I was greeted with a disgusting smell and loads of bills in our post box. I opened all the windows to get rid of that smell and when I went into the kitchen I realized where this smell came from. It was the lasagna. I completely forgot about it, and while I was at my mom's house it was rotting away in the kitchen. I instantly broke down. This was the last meal I ever cooked for Mark, and just like Mark it was rotting away. Was very hard for me to throw it out just yet, so I put it on the balcony before I could bring myself to throw it away. I know it sounds odd, but when I was making that lasagna it was the last time I felt happy, the last time my world was still alright and I just wasn't ready to get rid of it. I calmed myself down and started looking through all the bills that came. Most of these bills were paid automatically anyways, but a few weren't and one letter caught my attention. It was a red one and obviously a dunning letter. I have received a few of these in my life when I was at university and wasn't managing my finances correctly, but since I moved in together with Mark I always paid on time. I opened the letter and it was from our phone company. Mark's phone bill hadn't been paid. Without skipping a beat I paid it. I know it seems odd. Why would I pay his phone bills when he clearly didn't need it? But I guess just like the lasagna it was something I was not willing to let go of just yet. This is when I remembered his call on the day he died, the call I didn't hear because I was at the viewing, looking at the house I wanted to grow a family in, with Mark. I took the box and sat outside on the balcony, next to the rotten lasagna. I didn't even smell it anymore, and it gave me courage for some odd reason. I opened up the box and turned on his phone. It still had some battery left. His background was a picture of me. I used to hate that picture. I always thought I looked ugly. I had a double chin, some food in my face, and was laughing so hard that my eyes were very small. It was his favorite picture, and even though I protested he put it as his background picture, he always said this is what he loves about me the most. He doesn't care about looks or some beauty standards. He loved my personality, my laughs, my silliness, and he said that this picture captured me as good as a picture could. A tear ran down my cheek. I checked his phone list and there it was. His last call was me, a call I had answered. I checked the time of the call. It was 1:11 a.m. 1:11 a.m. the night he died. I wasn't sure how this was possible. He didn't have his phone with him at the point of his accident, nor his wallet. That's why they couldn't figure out whom to call. He was registered as a John Doe until I called them. Only after they went looking for his car, they found his belongings. I checked the time of the police report. The accident happened at 4:44 p.m. His official time of death was at 5:55 p.m. I started feeling sick. I had never felt this sick before in my entire life. While I am sure the disgusting smell of a rotten lasagna wasn't helping, but this was a different kind of sick. I started feeling anxious and scared. I immediately put away Mark's belongings and called my friend to come pick me up again. I had some sort of nervous breakdown. While my family and friends tried everything they could, they weren't much of a help, and after some back and forth they decided it would be best if had some time off, whatever that was supposed to mean. But they arranged for me to stay at some kind of resort, where you could kind of get over some major trauma in your life. I know they meant well, but I knew that I was never going to get over losing the love of my life. But since I didn't really have any reason not to go, I went. I could see that my parents were relieved when they dropped me off there, not having to worry about me every second of their day. It was in a sense also some time off for them. Even though they would have never admitted that. I spent a few weeks there. I had a group therapy session every day, and a one-on-one session every second day. The resort was kind of built like a hotel resort. It was nice there, nothing special, but I liked it there. I made some friends I sat with when we were in our group sessions, and we always ate together. Unless we were in our sessions, no one really talked about what trauma they had experienced that brought them here. And it was a general understanding that no one wanted that. In my free time I generally kept to myself. We were recommended to not use our phones and I took advantage of that. I hated being on social media, seeing everyone moving on with their lives while mine was shattered, and I couldn't bear one more text of friends and family asking me how I was feeling, because to be honest, I didn't feel anything. I wasn't sad. I wasn't happy. The closest I got to feeling something was when I woke up from yet another dream where Mark was still alive, but apart from then I was numb. Each of the clients, that's what we were called, had one person that was responsible for us. Mine was Catherine. Catherine was an elderly woman. She was always put together nicely, but you could tell she was getting older. From the first time I met her she wanted us to have a friendship-like relationship. And she was the person I could go to if I needed anything. I never saw her as a friend. I was never supposed to meet her. I was never supposed to be at that resort. I was never supposed to lose the love of my life at this young age. But here I was. At the beginning of my stay, I told Catherine what bills she would have to pay, including Mark's phone bill, which I told her was mine. I had a small locker in my room for expensive belongings we wanted to make sure no one could access but us. When I arrived, I put the small box with Mark's possessions and the file with all the legal documents of his death and my phone in that locker. The days went by and after 3 months staying in this resort it was time for me to leave again. The program included some aftercare as well. There were group sessions every week and Catherine told me, more than once, that if I ever needed something, no matter what I could call her. While I was in the resort, my family took care of my place. More precisely, Mark's and my contract was terminated by our landlord and they got all of my stuff and moved it into a new place. My mom chose the apartment, and to be honest I didn't really care where I would live. I knew that nothing would feel like home if Mark wasn't going to be there. 6 months went by and I found my new normal. I got up in the morning, I went to work, I talked to my mom, to tell her that I was fine. I went back home and fell asleep, hoping that I would dream of my old life, my life with Mark. The dreams evolved with time. In my dreams we bought the house and moved in. I was pregnant, and we were expecting our first girl. At the beginning I went to the group sessions once a week, but at some point, I stopped. It was exhausting, and I hated it there. I completely forgot, probably more so suppressed it, that Mark called me twice. After his death. It was probably some sort of coping mechanism of my brain since it didn't make any sense and just hurt too much thinking about it. Now this is where things started to get weird again. Almost a year after Mark died, I opened Mark's box again, and I remembered the phone calls that made absolutely no sense. Not being sure if I might have been delirious back then and mixed up some dates, I turned on the phone again, and there was me, laughing. A picture I used to hate. But when I looked at that picture, I knew what Mark was always talking about. I looked so happy, and that's what made me beautiful. The person I was back then was not here anymore. I was someone different. I had no joy in life, apart from my dreams. Now, obviously, the phone was running out of battery, so I charged it in my room and looked through it. It felt so wrong, even after he died. It felt like I was violating his privacy, but I kept on looking. I read all the messages people sent him after he died. I guess that was their way to say goodbye. Weird modern times we live in, I guess. Once again I fell asleep. In the past year one trained myself to fall asleep anywhere and everywhere. It was kind of an escape from all the things I went through. I was happy in my dreams. And Mark was always there with me. I never dreamt of something we did, but more so dreamt of how our life would look like if he were still here with me. But this night was different. I dreamt of the night when Mark died. I cried a lot, the first time in forever. Then I woke up, my phone was ringing. Mark was calling me. For a split second I thought the past year was all a horrible dream and Mark was still alive, calling me to tell me he is on his way home from work. I picked up the phone, but there was no one talking to me, only a distant coughing and some heavy breathing. It instantly gave me the chills. It was just like the night he died, when an unknown number had called me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to hang up. Then I realized that Mark's phone was still in my room, charging. I picked it up. But as soon as I unlocked it the call disconnected. I couldn't go back to sleep. I am normally not a very spiritual person, but this was weird. How is he calling me? The next day was March 15th. Corona regulations hit my town and I had to self-isolate. While everyone I knew had someone in quarantine with them, I didn't. I never bothered me that I was living alone, but I'm not going to lie, quarantine was hard. My new normal was turned upside down. I couldn't go to work, since it wasn't considered essential business, and I eventually lost my job, because I had only worked there for about half a year. My friends and family were concerned. I was all alone, in my apartment, not being allowed to visit anyone. At that point I also developed phobia of my phone ringing. I mostly had my phone on flight mode, connected to my Wi-Fi in case someone would write me on WhatsApp, but I rarely bothered to answer anyways. The only person I am in daily contact with is my mom. She is trying hard to hide, but I can tell she is exhausted, and I can't blame her. I wouldn't say I am suicidal. I don't think it would be fair to put my friends and family through that pain, but if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be here anymore. Anyways, I hadn't touched Mark's phone for a few weeks, and as I said, I had my phone on flight mode most of the time. However, yesterday was different. Since I am still unemployed, I kind of lost track of what day it is, but yesterday I got a notification on my phone. It read, Today at 5 p.m. open house viewing. I looked at it and put my phone down. I thought I was dreaming or that I started imagining things. But when I looked again it was there. I figured I must have mistakenly put it in my calendar last year as a reoccurring event, but what are the odds? And then I realized, this is Mark's death day. Exactly 1 year has passed and I didn't even know. I thought I'd cry or try to go back to sleep, but I did something I can't explain, and I still don't know why. I called him, not sure what I expected he wasn't going to pick up, was he? I dialed his number, but it went straight to voicemail, and there it was, his voice telling me to try later again. This is the first time I called his number since last year. I called it many times, just to listen to his voice. I fell asleep. But this night was different. I still dreamed of Mark and I, but this time I wasn't involved in the dream. I was an eavesdropper, a bystander. I watched him, me and our child living a happy life. I was not included in. Instead of feeling the warmth of his love, I felt lonely. I felt like I was being watched. I wanted to wake up, but I couldn't. It felt like I had to watch the dream to its end. I've never had a dream like this. I was uncomfortable, but at the same time so happy to see Mark again. But things got even weirder. I felt like myself in the dream and Mark saw me and looked at me. At first, I thought they were scared, but after a while I realized they weren't scared, they were angry. I tried to wake up so bad. The only place I could be happy went dark now. Mark and myself were standing in the kitchen in the beautiful old villa. I admired it for a while, and then I realized Mark and myself left the kitchen and I was on my own. This didn't feel like a dream, it felt too real, but how could it be? I wondered what the other rooms would look like, and since it was my dream, I figured I was the one to control it. I went to the main entrance. A beautiful white wooden door. I pushed the door open, ever so slightly, just in case someone could hear me. I entered and I saw what the most beautiful house I've ever seen. In my previous dreams I never really cared about my surroundings. All I could see was Mark, his smile, his laughter. I was amazed that I was able to furnish a house this beautifully unconsciously. Suddenly I heard a noise from behind me. I turn around and there was I. But close up, that woman didn't look like me. She looked like the person I used to be, before the accident. I was starting to really freak out. I told myself, this is just a dream. This is just a dream. Wake up, Laura. This is a bad dream. But I didn't wake up. She looked me deep into my eyes but didn't say a word. She tilted her head to the right and then to the left, as if she wanted to get a better look at all sides of me but never broke eye contact. She slowly raised her hand, in which she had the knife, and started smirking, ever so slightly, and then started laughing, really hard. But it was not the happy laughter that Mark loved me for so much. It was a dark laughter and it scared the shit out of me. I was really trying to nope the hell out of there, but there was no chance. I couldn't move. I couldn't wake up. My dream self was now about 1 meter away from me. She lifted the knife and I was ready to die. Die in my dream, die in real life, whatever it was. But then I felt something in the back pocket of my trousers. It was my phone. Mark rang. Before I could pick up, she managed to slash my underarm. It hurt horribly. I picked up the phone and there it was, his coughing, heavy breathing, just like the night he died. But then he said something, Laura, you need to wake up, now. I opened my eyes. I was in my room again. It was pitch black. I look at the clock and it was 1:11 a.m. I was very confused about that dream. I wanted to get my phone, but it was already in my hands. I had received a call from Mark. I jumped, and then I felt something wet on my right underarm, directly followed by a piercing pain. I pushed my covers aside and there was my underarm, covered in my own blood, having slashes exactly where my dream self cut me with her knife. This happened last night. Now I don't know what to do. The only place I wanted to exist were my dreams, but now I feel like this is the most dangerous place for me to be right now. I am trying to figure stuff out at the moment. For example, what I tell the doctors when I show them my wounds on my underarm, and if I am willing to die, to see Mark one last time in my dreams.